Welcome to the Clarity Advisor Show, where you'll learn how to grow your team today. Join Ken Trupke and his guests as they discuss what works and doesn't work to grow your team in today's world. And now, your host, Ken Trupke.
Hello, and welcome to the Clarity Advisor Show. The workplace is constantly evolving, and especially over the last several years, we've seen a lot of changes. And fractional leaders get to see those changes in a number of different environments. My guest today, Jen Hamilton, is a fractional chief operating officer. She works for the largest fractional COO firm, Wolf's Edge Integrators, taking clients from chaos and confusion to sustainable growth. So from sunny San Diego, California, welcome, Jen Hamilton.
Thank you, Ken. I appreciate being here.
It is sunny, right?
It is today.
Okay.
Hasn't been lately, but we're enjoying it.
Okay. All right. Well, once again in Michigan, it is, 50s and cloudy. So I always like to hear about places. I always like to hear about places where it's sunny and happy. So, all right. So from chaos and confusion to sustainable growth, tell me about that.
Essentially, what will happen often in a business is that whether you're just getting started or you've been going for a while, at some point you're going to hit this phase of there's just too much going on. It's so much for the business owner to handle that it is confusing. Bringing on new people, every additional person is just an additional layer of confusion and chaos because there's different interpretations, different ways of working, different points of view. So the more you grow, the more people you add to that chaos and confusion, unless you are really systematic with your infrastructure, putting in the systems, understanding who's the right people, having them clear on what processes you follow, and that's what gets you to that sustainable growth.
Okay, and that's where a chief operating officer, that's typically the role of that position. So you as a fractional COO, tell us about that. What does it mean to be fractional, and how do you attack that role?
Well, for the chief operating officer seat, it really is the right-hand person to the CEO, the business owner's other half, if you will. And typically it's the more execution on the strategic part for the COO to do, whereas the CEO has that visionary role, seeing where we can go, having those big relationships. And someone needs to take all those great ideas and make it happen. And that's often where that COO sits, and strategically aligning the entire leadership team, the entire team in general, being able to get everyone rowing in the same direction is what that COO seat does. In a fractional space, they're doing the same thing. It's just usually for a smaller company who wishes they could afford a full-time COO and just can't yet. It's that catch-22 where they would need to grow a lot more to be able to afford a full-time executive at that level who really can strategically grow and sustain their business. So this fractional idea is relatively new concept in some ways, but not in others. In the accounting world, they've been doing it forever. You don't need a CPA to do your taxes in your business every time all year. So it's the same kind of concept. Just getting enough for these smaller business of that strategic thinking, of that strategic leading, and of that kind of right-hand person to have those conversations with for the CEO is enough for the small businesses that they don't need it to be full-time. So as a fractional, the kind of way to just make it simple is you're part-time doing this full role, but you can do it for multiple companies as a piece of you or a fraction of you is shared by multiple companies. Then it makes it easier for the business not to have to pay the full salary amount they would if they brought them on full time.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. And so that gives you a chance to get some variety then too, because you're in a number of different companies at the same time. Now, not necessarily on the same day, but like within a week, you might be in what, 2 or 3 different companies in any given week?
Yeah, it depends on the fractional. It depends on the size of the company. So last year I was full with having two clients. So I would go into two businesses twice, 2 businesses throughout the week. And now, because I have a lot more smaller business clients, I actually have 5 businesses that I'm co-running with the CEO, and I'm in those businesses every week. Yeah, all 5 of them. And It's just, to me, it's really fun because I can build off of ideas. So sometimes it's like, oh, my client over here just needed that. And I can bring that tool already going and already seeing what's working into this one. So I do get to have a different perspective because I get a little space from them to see what other people are doing. And that's another benefit you can't have from a full-time COO who's just sort of got blinders onto your own business, is that I'm constantly getting the best practices from all of my clients to share with each other. They don't even sometimes know it, but I'm like, ooh, stealing from here and bringing it over there.
Right, and that is, like you say, the benefit that smaller business gets is they get a really higher level person than, like you had said earlier, they could really afford or even need. It's not necessarily that they can't afford it, they just don't need somebody the full time. And so to come in on that part-time basis and be able to bring the high level and bring those things from the other businesses, it's just a tremendous value. So I'm so interested in the fractional workspace. I think it's such a great way for businesses to get the help they couldn't otherwise afford, or again, might not need, to be able to level them up, and for practitioners like you to be able to be in different businesses, bringing value to more than just one company at a time. It's so interesting to me. So I want to get into some of your background too. But before we do that, I'm curious, how would a CEO find you? How do you get this kind of work and get connected to be the right-hand person to some of these CEOs?
So in fractional in general, it's a little hard to find all of the different fractionals because it is a new space. And so working with different organizations like myself, when you find one, you'll usually find them all. We're pretty well networked within our own space. So one of the things that I'm really proud of with our firm at Wolf's Edge Integrators is that we do know a lot of fractionals, including our what people would traditionally call competitors. We call our collaborators, so other firms or individuals doing similar work, because the fractional space, we are so abundance minded, so collaborative, that we do often know each other. So if you know one, you kind of know them all, is my trick to find them. And now you know one. So if you reach out to me at Wolf's Edge integrators.com, you're going to be able to go to our contact information and just fill out the form. Hey, I want to get some information on just knowing more about the fractional space, whether it's COO or otherwise, or about COs. And I'm often having just simple conversations with people to get them to, oh, you need a fractional CFO. Let me get you the financial person. You need a CMO. Let me get you the marketing person. So that's what I would say, is that we're such a well connected industry, essentially, that I would say find one, you can find just about any of them.
Sure. And is it becoming popular enough that the CEOs or the boards or whoever would be looking for you, the presidents, the owners, whatever that is, that they're knowing to look for you, or are you having to go look for them?
It's still both. There's a newness to this industry of fractional executive or fractional leadership. And oftentimes it's our ability to be within, a lot of times, like a executive coach environment or maybe a Vistage environment. That's where people are starting to hear more and more about it, is their trusted advisor as that executive in your seat. They see, oftentimes, meaning like the Vistage chair or their executive coach will see that, hey, you're taking on way too much. You're trying to run this business and grow the vision and make all these relationships and handle the sales and do this service delivery. So oftentimes they'll hear it from their already existing masterminds or networks or things like that, that it's time to get some help in running your business, not just getting an administrative assistant or someone to handle sales. Those are important too, but at some point you get to this stage where you're just like, holy moly, I don't know how to wrap my hands around it. I don't know how to get to the next stage. And that's often where they'll hear from their advisors, it's time to look into a COO. And if you can't afford it, then you want to look at it in a fractional sense.
Sure. Yeah, in my experience, that CEO or president or founder is typically a really dynamic, sales-oriented, visionary type, And when the business gets big enough that you really got to keep the trains running on time and herd the cats, that's just not their strong suit. And you don't want to pull them away from what is their strong suit of the vision of the business and going out and selling the products and services. You want to keep them doing that, but somebody's got to hold down the fort. And to bring in a COO is often the right answer. And a fractional COO is often an even better answer for the reasons we've gone through.
Absolutely.
So, all right. So something you and I have in common is we each started our careers with a public accounting firm. So tell us a little bit about that time in your life and then walk us through how you got to be a fractional COO.
Yes, I was in college and took my first quarter in accounting class, and I was like, "Ooh, this is really cool. Like things balance, they all work together." So that is my that is my geeky side coming out, is that I really fell in love with that business side, and looking at it through the lens of financials was an interesting introduction to the business world. I did public accounting for 7 years, and my favorite part was really understanding the processes, how the teams work together, and seeing that the numbers told a story, not that just numbers were numbers. And so taking that information and taking that experience, what I really wanted to do was go beyond just interpreting the numbers and start to give advice to businesses on how to run better and how to get their team to run better. So I left public accounting to go into the consulting world, and spending my time first in education consulting. That a lot of people may know that in the public education system, they could use a little more business approach to things. So putting systems in place, and really my job was to put tools in the hands of educators, whether they're teachers or after school providers or administrators, of how to truly engage their students and their colleagues and to be effective. And one of the things that I think is the hardest thing to do is to get a student who doesn't want to be there to actually engage. So for those of you who are like, I'm struggling with my employees, try to be a teacher, because at least you can pay your employees to show up. They just have to be there. So to actually engage a student is one of the hardest things on the planet. So getting that understanding of the engagement for students then led me into actually moving into consulting with small businesses and medium-sized businesses, how to get their leadership and their management to be effective with their teams, putting their processes, holding them accountable. And from there, it was really easy to shift into the fractional COO space, because I had seen all of the processes, looked at all of the areas of a small business, and understood what does it truly take to run a successful business, including I run my own businesses, own my own businesses. And so for me to do that shift, one of the things I really love about the fractional COO space and the fractional leadership space over consulting is I still get to bring in those strategic ideas to be able to have that outsider's view, but I'm also on the inside. I have a role as a leadership team member. People report to me. They look to me as their advisor, as their mentor, but also as their person holding them accountable. So I can take the same ideas I would have as a consultant and actually make them happen. And so that's been my evolution, and it's really, I think this is the best career I've ever had, and probably the last one I'll ever have. It's just such a rewarding experience of bringing all of my past experiences together.
Yeah, I think that's so true that for somebody who loves the variety of consulting and yet loves the that hands-on ability to make things happen as somebody in the company, not just alongside the company, it's such a great combination. I find the fractional space to be so interesting and so appropriate for so many businesses. I'm glad it's getting traction and it's really starting to become something that people know about, and more people are learning about it because it can be such a great fit and fun for the fractional leader too. So, well, we're going to take a break, and when we come back, I want to dive into some of the things that you've seen change over the years. So stay with us. We'll be back with Jen Hamilton here on the Clarity Advisor Show. Stay tuned.
Is your business where you want it to be, or on track to get there? Clarity Advisors helps business leaders improve communication and get your team aligned and engaged for greater success. We specialize in helping you streamline your sales and operating systems to improve efficiency and grow your profits. Call or text Ken at 616-822-2998 to have a complimentary 12-minute call to see what some clarity could do for you.
Okay, welcome back to the Clarity Advisor Show. Today we're talking with Fractional Chief Operating Officer Jen Hamilton. And Jen, you've been in business for a long time now, and as a fractional leader, you see a lot of businesses. What's changed, not just over the time you've been in business, but especially over the last couple years?
The biggest thing that has changed is that in the past you could capitalize on the market because of maybe your access to capital or you had the latest greatest technology. Now it's all about the workforce. How you win and how you compete is having the best team. And the other thing that has changed on the other side of it, which makes it even more challenging, is that the engaging your team, retaining your team, attracting the highest quality of team members is one of the greatest challenges that we see across the board, across industries, that is really tough on these businesses, especially in the small business world, because one bad hire, it has such a stronger ripple effect than in a large company. But the same thing happens with one good hire.
Oh yeah, it's so true. Yeah, like you said, especially in a small company. I mean, culture. One definition that I really like of culture is it's the collective. It's the collection of all of our behaviors. So it's just the sum of the behaviors of the team. And if you have a really small team and you bring somebody in who has a different set of behaviors, well, that's literally changing the culture then, and can be in a really negative way. Now, the good news is you bring somebody in that's got really positive fit, and it can continue to boost and grow and shape the culture you want. But yeah, it can be tough. So what are some things that you're seeing teams do to attract and retain those right people?
One of the things that has happened post COVID and great resignation is it made us all really aware, not just as people that are hiring teams, but as being someone that's in the world, working world, is how important it is to surround yourself with, I'll call it, your people. That the culture, like you were just saying, is the collective of the behaviors. If you're the one that doesn't fit, it does not bode well, and people just know, I got other options, I'm going to go other places. We've seen that evolve over time, but it got really intensified with the pandemic, and having this realization that life is short. Is this really what I want to do? Is this who I want to be with? Is this what I want to wake up every day and be in this environment? So one of the ways to win, if you will, in business, and win because of your team being so great, is to create a very supportive culture around your core values. So one quick tip, if you have not, take the time to define your core values and really do that collectively. Redefine it, define it. What does it look like? What does it not look like? And having your team buy into the values. Those who don't fit will self-select out, or you might help them out. But it also will really help with recruiting and retaining, because you want to lean into who we are. Because somebody who may be great in public accounting would not be so great in a Zappos crazy environment. I'm more reserved. I'm a little more conservative. So to be somewhere where it's just like, that's part, it feels like a party zone, would not work for me, even though I could be a good employee in both. So knowing that your employees match your culture, you want your culture to be forward in your recruiting, in your retaining also, because you don't want to say one thing. And we're seeing this now, that people understand, oh yeah, culture is a thing, so I'm going to recruit on it. And then the people that they attract to get in are like, this is nothing like you said. So you can't just say it, you got to live it. And that's why it starts with building that awareness of who we are, and what are those behaviors, like you said, Ken. What are the key behaviors that defines our success, the types of things that we do individually and thus as a team that causes our success?
Yeah, and now you and I have talked about the difference between a job posting and a job description, and you've got some thoughts on that. Share that with the audience.
Yeah, it makes a huge difference in terms of a lot of times, and to give credit where credit's due, I do the Darren Hardy Masterclass, and so I learned this out of this, and then I've been putting it into practice and seeing it for myself. Is that essentially where you have your posting? That's usually what you might see on Indeed or LinkedIn. Is the description of the position, and a lot of times what companies do is just take that position description that says, "What are your roles? What is your background? what's required. It's sort of boring, if you will, but necessary, very necessary to have that description of it, so you know what's expected, if you're qualified to apply. But putting that as your first view to a high talented potential employee, is missing a huge opportunity. What I like to say is take your marketing team, or at least your best person at being able to sell your company, and have them sell your company now. Instead of to a customer, you're selling to the next greatest employee. So it should be language that, again, emphasizes your culture. If you have special benefits like that, you are remote or you are flexible with your time, put that out there. Or that you are a team that is really loves to be work hard, play hard. Maybe you do some things where you guys do retreats. Bring all that culture, all that environment, all of that expectations, but do line out those behaviors into your posting, just like you would with your clients. You want to attract those who will align and work best with you, and you want to repel. And it's okay to even say, do not apply if repel some of those behaviors that you don't want to see. So that's a posting, is it's really more of a marketing piece to start to attract those aligned type of possible employees. And then once they are interested, send them the position description so they could see they have the qualifications. They can see what would be expected of me. Is that something that they want to do? That alone is an easy shift. And to be able to, it's not just about like the posting or description, it's about the thought behind it. It shifts your entire recruiting process if you really think about what's in it for them, just like you would in sales. Like, what's in it for this potential employee, not just how can I use this employee to get my goals. And so that whole shift on thinking it through a marketing lens is going to reflect in your interviews. It's going to reflect in your culture and looking at, well, do we do that? So I think that is it's not just a piece of paper or a position and something you do as part of recruiting. It just defines how you present yourself to these possible team members that are really going to make that difference in your competitive edge by having these great people on your team.
Oh, there's so much there that I want to dive into. First, you're right. I totally agree that the team is what is your competitive advantage. I've said before, people can get really anything else. They can buy the same software tools you're using. They can get the same equipment if it's some kind of a manufacturing or product thing, and can deliver in theory the same service. But how, because of the team you have, that's your differentiator. And so finding the people that fit your team is so critical. You mentioned kind of walk the talk. Like, you can't just make this stuff up or put it on paper or put it out on the internet and then not actually be it. You actually have to do the things you say you're doing and be the company, which leads me to say that in my experience, the process of defining those core values, even if it's only in service of putting together a job posting, is let's think about who we're looking for and what our culture should be, and then compare that to what it really is. That whole exercise, I obviously think you should take that really far and get really serious about it and make sure it's clear and communicated, and that's how you live all the time. But even just that exercise to get it ready for a job posting is so helpful to be set back and reflect on what is it we're trying to do and who is it we're trying to attract and what are we trying to grow as a team and bring together. And so, yeah, that's it's so important to step back and think. And sometimes people feel like, oh, that's really soft stuff, and let's get back to doing the work. But if you can buy into the idea that your team is your competitive advantage, well, then people is the thing you need, and working on the people and for the people, well, then that's the whole game, right?
Yes, can I share one little story too about what happened with my client when we went through this exercise of putting their posting together? That'd be
Oh,
okay,
for
Ken?
sure. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
One of the things that was really powerful, and this was an unexpected surprise for me and made me want to do this exercise more often with my clients, so I am. When we put together the posting and we took the time to understand their purpose, we took the time to understand their vision, we took the time to understand their values and their behaviors. So values and how you behave can be similar, but they're often different too. That we work well as a team, we're collaborative, may not be the same as your values, but really being clear on all of those pieces. We then created that job posting, and I shared it with the current employees. So they're already employed and they've been there forever. when they read it, they were like, "Oh my gosh, I want to work there so much." So it was this experience of re-energizing and understanding what it is they already love about this company, but then for them to be able to speak to it and to see it, they were it was kind of a nice test for us to say, is this how you feel it is? And they wanted to basically sign up again. And so I think it's not just about the new person, it's about reaffirming with the current team that this is what we're all about. And it was pretty special to see like this new energy that came out of the existing incredible employees that we have at that company.
Yeah, that's totally been my experience as well. Is the more you lean into defining and communicating, and then, like we said, living those values, the more energetic the team gets because you realize, yeah, it's people like us that do things like this, as Seth Godin says, that we are a team and we have these shared values and these shared behaviors. And this is a great place to be because I'm such a good fit and everyone else is such a good fit, and it continues to compound and build on itself. And yeah, I've seen it too, where the existing team gets energized by preparing for the new person because they realize how great it is. It's not great necessarily, uh, objectively against other companies as much as it's great because everybody's a fit. So it's a great fit for them. I remind companies too sometimes when they find somebody who's not a great fit. I'm like, look, they're not a bad person. They're just a bad fit. And so it's not that they can't find work somewhere else where to put their skills and talents to use. It's just here isn't a good fit for them culturally. And so when the team realizes, wow, we are a good fit, it can be really exciting. So I love that story. Thanks for sharing that. So, well, Jen, I know that you are a reader and a learner. So, what are some things that you're consuming these days to stay sharp?
So this is a funny question, or maybe it's a funnier answer because it just goes to show my two sides of me. So I'm actually reading two different. Currently, I was thinking about when you asked this. Reading and just finished reading "Who Not How" by Dan Sullivan and Dr. Benjamin Hardy. What's great about that is it's all the people side, right? It's asking the question instead of how do I do this, who can I have do it? And so again, bringing that top talent around you. I'm also reading The Speed of Trust from Stephen M. R. Covey, and so understanding again that of all the people side. And I'm also reading Simple Numbers 2.0, and I've just finished reading Profit First. So I just was laughing at this question because I have all of these finance and process kinds of things that I'm also reading and getting, and sometimes more, as my team will laugh. Jen, you've already read that while you're reading again, but just really getting in depth so that I can keep my knife sharp, if you will, and my ability to cut through what's not working for a company. And both they're right now, especially in this economy, it's the team, getting the right team and being really smart with our finances. As changes are happening in a more down economy, we got to really lean into it. So that's where I'm spending my time. Recommend, if you haven't read Simple Numbers 1.0, I don't know that that's what they call it, but do that before 2.0.
Okay. Well, we'll have those books in the show notes. I appreciate you sharing those. I have not read that one, so I'll have to get caught up on that too. But I love that you're reading what feel like kind of people side as well as the task or numbers side, because especially in that COO seat where you're responsible for those inside what I call the four walls. I know it's virtual in a lot of places, or some teammates are virtual and others are in the office, but the virtual four walls that make up our company, whatever that is, you as the COO are responsible for all those people, and you need to care about those people and then still get things done. And it's those two sides that is what makes the job challenging. And so to hear that you're staying sharp with both sides of those, I really like that. So I appreciate those book recommendations.
Absolutely.
So Jen, what would be who would be somebody that should reach out to you, and what would be the best way for them to do that?
Well, Ken, I appreciate that question because ultimately what we want to do is help business owners who are struggling, who are feeling that chaos, or are feeling like, gosh, I can't control it like I used to. It's just too messy. And they're either it's because they're growing and they don't know how to get to the next place, or they've grown so much that you grow too fast, and now you see, I can't handle it. There's too many people. There's too many complaints. All we're dealing with is customer complaints, employee complaints. So essentially, you got a bit of a mess, and you don't have someone that can be that right hand person who actually, we strangely enough like to dig in. The more messy, the better, and wants to actually do the work that takes to start to strengthen your control over the team, over the processes, and basically get you to that self manage where the business can run without you. And to truly have a business and not just a company that you own that gives you a job, you do need to move to that self-managed business where you can rely on your team, where you can rely on your processes, you can rely on your data to look at it from a bird's eye view and see if your business is well or not, or what simple things you need your team to change from you. So that's if you are looking at, gosh, how can I really sit as a business owner instead of my business owning me and giving me a job, that's when I think it's appropriate to reach out to a COO of any kind. If you can get one full time, but if you can't and you want to look at the fractional option, I'd be more than happy to look at that with you.
Excellent. And what's the best way for people to reach you?
Sure. So if you go to wolfsedgeintegrators.com and you can go to our contact us page, there's a way just to fill out the form, and you can put in there that, I want to talk to Jen, or any one of our team members. They'll all take good care of you and answer your questions. And so our contact us form, I say that because you can say, like, what are you dealing with? It's a safe way to say, I've got this issue, or I'm dealing with this, or you could just wait it for our call. But it's an educational call that we'll set up with you, just to be that research for you. I like to say we want to be the Wikipedia of all things fractional COO. So if you just are trying to even figure out what you do need, sometimes we find out that you don't need that, especially when there's two owners. One might already be that COO, but they just don't have the strength of someone under them. And sometimes we say, you don't need us. You actually just need an executive assistant or a project manager. So know that it's safe. We'll guide you in whatever way is going to be best for you and your company.
I love that. It comes back to what you said at the top of the show about an abundance mindset, that there's plenty of work out there, right? And you and I both know this from being out there as an advisor, that there's lots of things that need help to get fixed and get improved, and there's no end to that. And so it's not as if everybody's fighting for these one or two jobs. There's lots of work out there. And so if you're not the right fit, or somebody just needs, like you said, that administrative assistant or the project manager, or they have an internal COO candidate or whatever, you're going to say that because you've got other things, other people need you more. There's other places to go do helpful things that you don't have to do that. So there's no reason to not give the best advice. So I love that people can just go ahead and fill out that form, give you a call or somebody else on your team and have a conversation, and you're going to treat them right. You're going to give them the best advice, whether that's to have you come in or not have you come in. We just want to help people, right?
Absolutely.
All right, fantastic. Well, Jen, this has been such fun. I so appreciate you coming on the show and sharing things that you know and you've seen, and just hearing about what you're doing. It's so encouraging, and I'm glad you give people a way to reach out, to check out Fractional Integrators and Wolf's Edge specifically. And so thanks so much for being here.
Thank you for having me. It's been a
Oh, you're
pleasure.
very welcome. Okay, and that brings us to the end of another Clarity Advisor show. Thanks for joining us. And if you would be so kind as to leave a review on the platform you are watching or listening, that would help us to spread the word about this show. And with that, we will see you next time. Thanks so much.
Thank you for listening to the Clarity Advisor Show. Clarity Advisors is a speaking, training, and consulting firm specializing in helping you simplify your sales and operating systems to improve efficiency and grow your profits. Connect with Clarity Advisors today to learn more about how they can help you improve communication and get your team aligned and engaged for greater success.